Hello everyone, welcome to another episode with BLS Tech. This is going to be a part 2 of my standard notes video. In the first video I kind of talked about a little bit about what standard notes is, why I feel it's a great notes app if you're really concerned about like privacy and portability of your data. We talked a lot about the pricing structure, we talked about all the various different features you get with standard notes. And we kind of talked about a little bit about the awesome culture around the community that's trying to give back to standard notes and the folks that you may meet in their Discord channel if you ever need support. And so if you want to kind of refer back to part 1, I'll leave that link in the description below. And let's go ahead and kind of dive right in. So in our last video, we kind of left off where I kind of gave some basics of how the standard notes application is structured. And today we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive. I have an account here that's logged into Standard Notes. I am subscribed to a premium plan. At the moment it's the professional plan if you're curious. And basically what I did there was Standard Notes has a feature called subscription sharing, where it's kind of similar to the Apple one and or the Google One family plan, where you can kind of share your storage and share your plan with friends and family. And so my personal account, I was able to share my subscription with this demo account here to kind of show off some of the unique features that you get if you become a paid member. I think it's good to support, a product that you're very passionate about and that you actually gain value out of. And so I am a very happy customer. Standard Notes is not sponsoring this video at all. This is just simply me wanting to kind of share some of the awesome that they're doing with this application. And so let's kind of dive right in. If you can see here, we have a note. This is kind of like the basic note type. In the top right here, you'll see this little drop down where it says change note type. Each note that you create using this plus button here will allow you to actually change the type of note that you want to do. The super note is kind of like their premium note experience. Again, you have to be a paid member to kind of get access to that, but we'll show a little bit about what that is. But by default, any note that you create is a plain text note. You can change the default note editor type for all new notes, and I'll kind of go through that in just a few minutes. But here you can kind of see that with plain text, there's not really much here. It's literally just that. It's plain text. It's very simple, very bland, but it definitely solves some of your needs. If we kind of click on this note type here, we can go ahead and we'll tackle super last, but let's go ahead and go to rich text. So I can go ahead and kind of instantly convert this note from plain text to a rich text note, and you'll see that automatically it gave me this awesome looking toolbar. I can easily make this text bold, italics, I can underline it, I can even change the font family if I want to, and there's the various of other options depending on the type of content that you're trying to write within this note. You can attach images. One thing to note about this is that if you do attach any images and or video, to my understanding that will upload the image and or video to the backend storage system that Standard Notes provides. At this time of recording this video, they do operate out of Amazon Web Services. They have a whole outline on their website on how they kind of store your data using the same type of encryption that protects your notes, also protects your files. So they can't see any of your images and or videos. It's really only you that has access to that data. And so this is the rich text experience. Again, pretty simple, but again, we get some added superpowers here with this toolbar. I can go ahead and click on this, and I can go ahead and move this down to Markdown, and you can see now by default plain text and rich text, right, due to the nature of the text body content, there is some HTML here that is added around the actual content. So depending on the types of notes that you're trying to convert between, you may see this. Typically what I end up doing is if I'm going from either plain text or rich text to any one of these other types of content types, typically I will, let's kind of just get rid of this. I will actually copy the content first. So for example, if I have just this, I'll go ahead and I will copy this, and then I'll switch over to, let's say, Markdown, And you can see in some cases it actually does convert properly depending on where you're converting from. So again, you saw how I went from rich text to markdown and added some HTML there. Again, to just keep that in mind that you may see that. So typically I always copy the text first so that way I can just paste it right back in if that were to happen. Next is the checklist. As you can see, it already converted my content to the checklist type, and I can add more here. I can keep on going, add some more. And you can see that I can also check these off, and they kind of get moved down to the completed list. And over here on the left, you get a nice visual of where you are. So this is great for project tracking. If you want to group different tasks based on the type of work that you're doing, so like home chores, work-related tasks you need to do, like, hey, for instance, take your daughter or son out to their soccer game, things like that. So it's pretty clean, pretty lean. And then the next one is code. This one I use quite a lot. So if we want to go ahead and convert this to code, you can see what it did here is it converted that checklist type over to a code type. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of write some Golang here. Go is my favorite language of choice. It's what I'm most familiar with. And so here, don't worry about if you don't understand this, but just want to kind of give you a quick understanding of what this looks like from a coding perspective. But ideally, we can write some code, and I'm doing this live. We can write some code here, and ideally what you can do is once you have the code written, just import this package, even so we're not going to be using it. What you can do here is you can then pick the different types of languages that you want to convert this to. So I'm going to pick the Go language here, and with that I have Go. And now you can see that it went ahead and changed the actual highlighting. So again, fairly good. I use this to store little snow snippets within like standard notes. I'll even store full scripts that I typically want to keep on hand. Yes, you can keep these things in things like GitHub and or GitLab, but sometimes it's just nice to have some of these code snippets alongside notes that may provide you with more context as you're kind of using standard notes. And then you can also set a default language if you always write in Bash, Python, or whatever. And for you diehard Vim users, yes, there is even a Vim mode if you want to use Vim key bindings within this code editor. So again, very nice, very clean. Let's go ahead and go. I want to click on this guy again. And now this is probably one of my favorites, is the spreadsheet one. So obviously this code is not really going to convert over to spreadsheet really well, but I want to go and get rid of this. And we're going to go ahead and click on this on the spreadsheet type. As you can see here, it is giving me a warning just because, again, due to the type of content that you have in this note, since I'm utilizing the same note to give you an understanding of all these different editor types, it is kind of trying to warn me that, hey, the content you have in this current note may not convert very well over to this new note type. And so I'm going to go ahead and accept that warning. So now here, this is the spreadsheet type. This is a very popular note editor within standard notes. I use this to track things like my subscriptions, things of maybe some investments, doing some quick calculations. I even use this for some form of inventory tracking within my home, like all the different types of devices that I have in my house and when the warranty is going to expire, things like that. And so this is very simple, again, very basic spreadsheet, but gives you all the things that you would probably want to use and really care about when leveraging some form of a spreadsheet. I would say it's not as powerful as like Microsoft Office, Excel, or Google Sheets, but it definitely gets the job done. It supports multiple sheets, it supports formulas, and it's really pretty awesome. Again, I use it quite often, and I think it definitely comes in handy when you want to leverage standard notes to its full potential. Lastly, we have the authenticator. So for this one, I want to go ahead and create a new note. So I went ahead and created a new note here. You can see that by default, I have it set to where it populates the title with the date and time. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to change this down to a authenticator type. And you'll see here that simply I can now add two-factor tokens in here. So this is great. If I do add new here, I can provide the actual service. So for example, let's say it's LinkedIn or it's GitHub.com or it's Microsoft.com. I can provide the service name. You might have multiple different types of accounts. So if you're like logging into GitHub or Microsoft or even let's say Reddit.com, you might have your personal account. You might have like a work account. You can kind of give a description of the type of account. And then typically when any type of website or service creates a two-factor token for you, typically they'll give you a QR code. But a lot of times underneath that QR code, if you can't scan the QR code, they'll give you the actual secret. And so that's the actual string that you want to paste in here. And then you can add some notes. And then once you click create, this particular note now tracks your two-factor tokens. And you can add as many in here as you want. There's even an option to actually upload the QR code if you don't want to copy and paste that secret. This feature is actually fairly new. But again, this is a great backup if you lose access to your two-factor token application of choice. Or you can just use this as your primary token manager. It's great to use. It's always there. It's backed up with standard notes whenever your automated or manual backups happen. And so I kind of use this as like my failsafe. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to create one more note here and kind of just show you some of the options. So again, we kind of went through all these. We went through the plain text, the rich text, the markdown, the checklist, the code editor, the spreadsheet, and the token authenticator. Now let's kind of look at what super looks like. Super, see, it didn't really add anything new, but where the power comes in is the second we do a /, you can see now we get all these new options. So now this gives you some similar functionality to, let's say, Notion and or Roam Research or even Obsidian, right? Where you kind of hit the / and you get this new context menu that really kind of brings the power a lot of the things that you can do in here. So now we can simply say, hey, you know what? I want a paragraph, and we can start typing. This is a test of the Super Notes editor. We can hit the down button a little bit. We do get spell check in here. So for now, I'm just going ahead and fix this. And if we go ahead and highlight any of this text, you can see that we do get a subcontext menu here. We can kind of do the same things as with the rich editor, such as setting the text to bold, italics, underscore, and so on. Even add hyperlinks if you want. So now if we hit the / again, you can see we can then set some headers. We can even create tables. We can even import an image from a URL. We can do lists and numbered lists, checklists, quotes. You can even do inline code just like you can with the actual code editor. You can create dividers, right? You can create some separation between the different sections of this page. And now if I scroll all the way down, you can see we can even insert the current date and time, which is great. We scroll down even further. We can do things like align center, align right. And then what's really cool is that you can even generate a secure password. Again, if you just need to create a quick password for something and don't have access to your password manager of choice. Although I would say that because due to the level of encryption that Standard Notes offers, I believe it's perfectly fine for you to store your passwords and other like secure information in here. I will make one note that, as you can see here, by default when you log into Standard Notes from a web version, it does not auto lock. So you would have to set that up, and I'll kind of show you that in like just a moment. But if you are going to leverage this for for confidential information, for personal information that you don't want others looking at, when you do log in with Standard Notes into a web browser or even into the desktop application, or even on mobile, typically it does not auto lock. And so by default, the first thing I do when I log into Standard Notes is I log in, I go into my account settings, and I enable a security pin automatically in the duration of when I want that to auto lock. Just so that way, if I ever walk away from my phone or from my desk, I know that Standard Notes is going to lock automatically for me. And again, I'll show that in just a bit so you can kind of see how that works. So if we continue down here, I can go ahead and click this again. And I can scroll all the way down, and you can see there's a few other options. You can collapse information, you can embed tweets, and even like YouTube videos. And so again, this is fairly powerful. I typically use this when I'm writing full on like documents. Could be even a script or even a book or even like a blog post. But this is very powerful. This is probably one of my favorite editors alongside the spreadsheet editor. So with that, we kind of covered all the different note types that you get. This isn't a extensive list of all the editors. There are community created and supported editors that you can actually import into standard notes. Just be aware that when you're using a community plugin, you just want to, if you're a techie type person, you might want to just kind of look at the code and make sure that they aren't doing anything like malicious with your note content, because if you do import a community plugin, they could have access to your notes, and so just keep that in mind. These actual plugins here are the core plugins of Standard Notes. They are fully maintained by the Standard Notes team, and they're very careful about what types of core plugins they create and manage, just because they're really trying to give you a lean and clean experience here, and they don't want to over bloat the application with too many features. And so they really lean on the community to kind of help fill those gaps. And I think that's a great balance to kind of allow people to really leverage Standard Notes in kind of any way possible. So we kind of covered all the editors. As you can see here, I do have some folders, so I can actually create some more folders here. So here I'm going to create one called, let's say, Sheets. And if I go back to my notes here, I can click on this sheet, for example, and I can go ahead and just type in Sheets, and it will come up, and I can simply tag that as kind of within my Sheets folder here. I can also see that it's also part of my volleyball folder, so I want to go ahead and get rid of that because this is not for volleyball. And if I go back in here, so I ended up clicking the actual tag. Apologize for that. There it is. Okay, so now we can also link notes together. So I can say, okay, you know what? This note here, let's say it's related to this note here. I can go ahead and just type in Friday, and you can see that it comes right up, and I can go ahead and I can tie it to either the note here, and I can easily see that this is a text-based note. This is a token-based note, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this guy here. And you can see now it's linked to that note, and if I click on this, it will direct me to that note, and now it automatically added the reverse reference of that note. So I can see, I can see that this is also related. I can click back, and it'll take me right back to the source note. So that's kind of great. Similar functionality to, again, other note-taking applications. But I think that's great because it kind of provides you that context of how notes are related together. It kind of helps you build that database within Standard Notes. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and kind of show too that you can also upload files. So if you click on this little like paperclip looking icon here, there's a few things you can see here. You can search items to link. This will search your entire notes within SN. You can see what current tags you already have attached to this note. You can upload files. When you upload files in Standard Notes, what happens is Standard Notes encrypts that attachment or file with the same level of encryption that is using to secure your notes. It then uploads that file into their platform that's currently hosted in Amazon Web Services. And to my knowledge, that leverages S3 on the back end. And so it really allows them to kind of scale very quickly while still providing the same great experience within SN. And you can also see the other linked notes that are currently linked to this current note that you have open. So again, you get some pretty good context about the status of your note. And that's that. And so here I can pin this note to the very top. So typically what I do is, like for my token editor or for notes that I typically like to reference quite often, I will actually pin them to the very top of this notes list. And again, this is a view of notes, so this will give you a full list of all the notes that you have within Standard Notes. And then if I click on this little three dot icon in the far right, this is the note options menu. This gives you quite a few things here. So within each note, again, if you're paying for Standard Notes, you get access to a little longer note history. if you need to be able to create or revert back to previous revisions of a note. I can change the editor width. I can prevent editing. So I typically use this for if I have a note where I'm storing passwords, or a note where I'm storing data that I don't want to accidentally edit and or mess up. I will actually edit the note and then quickly turn this on, and then I'll typically I won't turn this off until I'm ready to actually edit that note again. You can actually show previews here. So here, once I click this off, you can see that the preview over here on the left-hand plane is gone. This is kind of convenient if you do end up walking away from your desk, or someone is kind of working with you alongside you at your desk and you don't want them seeing the actual previews of content in your notes. You can actually just toggle this off. You can add further protection to your notes by adding password protect to single notes. This is great if you want a double layer of protection against, again, notes that may contain passwords or other sensitive types of information. And so this is great to kind of have that option to quickly enable. Again, this submenu here allows you to change the actual note type. You can do the same thing here on this icon, but this just gives you the convenience of also changing it here as well. I can add tags. I can actually favorite this particular note, and I can see that it added a star over here on the note itself. I can unpin this, and it will unpin it from the top. I can also export this to many different formats, and so now that automatically exported that particular note to a JSON format. I believe other formats are coming down the line later, but don't quote me on that. I can duplicate the note. I can also archive it. If you archive it, it will actually get moved, and I'll do that. And as you can see here, it got moved into this section, which is the archive section. And so that's kind of cool. And then if we go back to this menu, I'm now on a different note because I did archive that note. You can see that I can actually now do what's called, I can show the markdown. Because I'm leveraging the Super Notes editor on this particular note, there's some extra options you get in this Note Options context menu. And so I am now given the option to show markdown. And with Super Note, you get some extra options to actually export. So depending on the type of note editor that you're using for that note, you may get different options here just based on the contents of that particular note. So as you saw previously, I was editing or trying to export the spreadsheets note. And so obviously JSON probably makes the most sense to actually export versus maybe Markdown or HTML, because a spreadsheet being converted to those formats may not look as great. Listed actions here, again, if you're leveraging standard notes, you will get access to their listed.to blogging system. It's great because you can actually write blog posts directly in standard notes and publish them to your blog that's hosted on listed platform. And so I actually have a blog there, and so the listed actions here allow you to actually publish your blog. As you can see here, you do have to go through an extra layer of protection just to make sure that you are authenticated to listed platform. And so I'm not going to do that right now, but again, if you're leveraging that platform, you'll see a bunch of other options here. And then lastly, you can enable and disable spell check. Depending on how many notes you have in standard notes, you may want to disable this on really big notes where it might impact performance, but I haven't seen any so far. In my personal account, I have upwards of roughly 2,000 notes, and I still haven't seen any performance impact. And then you get some metadata here about your note, like the last modified, the created, and the note ID. And so we kind of went over all these various different options in the top right toolbar here for every note. Here in the center column where all your notes are actually listed, you have the option to do a few things here. So these are your display options. You can set these preferences for globally across all your notes, or all of SN, or just the actual notes section here. And so here I can sort by date modified, created date, title. I can set different options of the view, so I can show the date. You can turn this off and on, and as you can see, that affected the date right here in the note. You can disable tags. You can even disable the actual icons. I actually like the icons on because it gives me a quick understanding of the type of note that is. and kind of helps me navigate when I want to kind of filter down different note types. You can hide pinned notes or show them. Same thing for protected and archived notes. So if I click on this, you'll see that the 2 notes I had archived in this section here are now showing up. And if I unselect it, they kind of instantly go away. Same thing for trash notes. And then here's where you can set your default notes editor types. Again, this is so every time you click on this plus sign or create a new note, it will automatically use whatever editor you have selected. I typically go with plain text first, but you might want to leverage one of these other editors depending on your personal preferences. And then for the default titles that are created, as you can see here, there's a default date and time being created for every note that I create, and you can instantly change that to whatever you want, or even make it empty, or even create like your own format. So that's kind of the middle column and right plane to kind of give you some context of how these editors work, how these notes work. On the far left-hand plane here, again, this is like your navigation sidebar. You can see that we have notes, we have files, and then we have starred items, archived, and trash, and then untagged notes. This is great because for me, I like to have every single note tagged to some degree. And this is great for me to kind of go back and kind of, put tags on notes that I may have forgotten or just didn't have time to. And then obviously there's folders. Folders are tags, so these are technically hashtags, but they're treated as folders. You can do subfolders as well. So I can click on here. I can go and do add subtag, and I can just say, let's say that this is taxes, right? And so now what's cool is that I can even change the icon. So this does support emojis, so if you're on Mac or Windows, there's a keyboard binding where you can actually pull up the emojis and pick one if you want. So here they even give you a tip of like how to access that window, because I'm on a Mac. This is coming up. So for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and pick the. Let's see here. I'm gonna pick this little icon here. And as you can see, it went ahead and updated that icon. And then what's really cool is I can favorite this, I can rename it, and I can even add a new note here. And now you see that there's note is now here. It's showing up right here now. Actually, no, it's not. Let's go back and save it because I didn't add any content to that note. Let's add some fake content here. Yeah, there we go. Now it saved it. And now you can see there's now a note count of 1 that's in this subtag. So you can create subfolders, organization. I'm particularly fond of the para method. If you don't know what that is, it's simply a organizational method. Just look up PARA method on Google, and you will see how that might be like useful for you as far as how you want to organize like your folders. Let's go ahead and kind of go into some of these preference settings. In the bottom left here, you'll see that there's 3 icons here. The one on the farthest right allows me to access the quick menu. I can pick various different themes. As you can see here, I can toggle them, and it gives me a quick preview of what that theme looks like. I typically go with like Solarized Dark, but we'll stay on Titanium for now. This looks pretty good. You also get an option of what's called dynamic panels. This is basically hides this left panel here, and when you mouse over it, it kind of covers right back in. So this is really great if you want to maintain or maximize the amount of real estate on your screen for as much as possible. I'm going to turn this off for now, and now it's back to a fixed mode. Focus mode here, again, it's focus, right? It kind of goes into a Zen-like mode to where you can really just focus on the type of content that you're writing. So if you're writing a book or something or a blog post, that's great. I want to go ahead and turn this off, and now we get back to our normal view. And then if I click this button again, you can see that we can now toggle off the tags panel and the notes panel. So again, some really great options on how you want to organize your navigation within standard notes, but I think that's great. The next icon is the preferences icon. This is, again, where you manage a lot of your account information, so you can change your email. Again, this email I'm using for the purposes of this demo. You can change your password. You can force a sync, and then this gives you some information about your subscription. So again, I shared my personal subscription with this account. So as you can see, I am on the Standard Notes Professional subscription. And yes, I actually was a early user of Standard Notes, so I bought into a 5-year plan, and so I have quite a while before I have to renew. And then you can also share your subscription out with other users for friends or family. Now, because I'm sharing my personal subscription with this particular account here, to my knowledge, if you try to reshare, I don't think that's going to work. It's probably going to prompt you to actually be able to purchase your own plan. So don't quote me on that. I'm not sure exactly how that works. I might try that out later, and I'll let you know. Files. This is the files storage. This allows us to again see how much quota we're using on our file storage, because files are stored within Standard Notes. You do have to pay for that type of for the amount of storage that you're currently renting from them. Again, this kind of gives you a quick overview of that storage. And then for emails, you can opt in to mute emails, or you can mute the marketing types of emails. So you want to kind of keep your inbox clean. You can kind of signify to SN that you wish to receive those emails or not. Totally up to you. Here we can also sign out of all of our sessions. So if you're logged in on other computers or other devices, I recommend to keep this on, just because you can kind of see where you're logged in elsewhere. You can see here that I'm actually logged in on 2 other machines, and I can actually revoke those. So this is great if you lost the device, or if you're not sure where you're logged in elsewhere. You can kind of manage that later. Finally, you can sign out of your current workspace. SN does support multiple workspaces, and I'll kind of show what that looks like in just a moment. And then you can obviously delete your account. All right, let's go ahead and move to the General tab. So the General tab, this allows us to signify preferences around what happens when we open up the Standard Notes app. Do you want to have the first note viewed or not, or the last note viewed? We can set our defaults here for spell check and some tag preferences. We can also set a toggle here. Again, pretty self-explanatory, but it controls whether the animation saving status is shown while editing. This gives you an indication of whether that note is saved or not. Smart views is pretty interesting. This controls what a smart view is, and I'll go back to the main screen here, is you can create views here on the left-hand side. So archived, or let's say starred, this is somewhat of a smart view. Or let's say untagged actually is a good example. This is an actual smart view where, again, it's a custom view of all notes that don't have a tag. And so, for example, if I were to go back to the preferences menu and I go back to general, I can create a smart view here. And so you would give it a title, give it an icon, and basically you can set different conditions. And so I can call this taxes, for example, and I can tell it, hey, I want to you to view all, let's say, all notes that have a title of taxes. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. You can also build custom views using JSON. If you join the Discord community, there's folks in there all the time posting different types of views. You can always copy one of those or ask for help if you're unfamiliar with how to use this. I know I did. It did take me a while to kind of get used to this. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the main page here. And now if I click on tax, you see that we don't have any notes here with the title of tax. So if I go ahead and go to notes here, I want to create a new note. I'm going to edit this note, call it tax. Tax files attached, even so I don't really have any files attached here. I want to click on tax, and still not working. You know what? I think that's because I forgot what I created the view as. Let me go back, save that, go back to here. Yeah, there we go. Now it's kind of currently showing up, and that is because if I go back to the smart view, here it says whenever the title is equal to the word taxes. And so again, you can really get creative with the types of smart views that you want to create. is really to kind of help you narrow down your notes, especially if you have a lot of notes. You can leverage this to quickly create some views that will get you to the content that you're looking for fairly quickly. So that's Smart Views, pretty well designed. Moments is a labs feature. These are features that Standard Notes is trying to test out to get a feel for if they feel that this is going to add more value to your experience within Standard Notes. And so Moments is pretty cool, primarily for your mobile phone. But if you enable this on your phone in the Standard Notes application, Standard Notes will actually take a random photo of you every so often based on a certain interval, and it'll store those random selfie photos into Standard Notes in a very secure way, so you can actually go back and see typically your entire day. Just see candid photos of you throughout your day, and kind of gives you a way of thinking about how that day went. This is great for like journaling, but also knowing that these moments that are captured automatically are stored safely in Standard Notes gives you some peace of mind that they're not uploaded to some third-party cloud provider or exposed in any kind of way. So you may see other lab features exposed in here. And again, try them out. I know I did. It was great. I tried it for a whole day, and I went back later that evening, and I was able to see all the random photos that were taken throughout my day. And so it really kind of gave me some of that perspective. Under advanced options, again, every editor you can uninstall. Again, Standard Notes is very modular, so you can actually uninstall and re-add editors as you wish, or even themes. If you scroll all the way down here, this is where you would actually import some community-based plugin and/or theme. And so again, if you want to know more about how to create your own theme or plugin, or even see what the community has built, again, I urge you to join the Standard Notes Discord and just ask around. There's also a few GitHub projects that I will link below as well that will kind of help you understand where you can kind of look at a gallery of all the various different plugins that you can install. These like security tab, fairly straightforward. It's based all around the security within Standard Notes. So here I can see how many notes I have that are fully encrypted, how many files, how many tags, how many archive notes, and how many trash notes. A quick status of that. So I do have protections enabled, which is good. Here you can enable two-factor authentication for your account. For the purposes of this demo, I don't have this enabled, but I urge you to turn this on the second you do get, you do create like your Standard Notes account, just because it does add that extra layer of protection. Standard Notes does offer hardware keys, and so I'm a big fan of this. I have several hardware keys, primarily from a YubiKey. You can only add these hardware keys in the web version of Standard Notes, to my knowledge, not the desktop version. So if you're trying to add a hardware key, this leverages a technology called WebAuthn. And so primarily, if you're going to add a hardware key, you want to just sign into Standard Notes via a web browser and go ahead and add your keys. This is what I was talking about earlier. So the second I log into Standard Notes on my phone, on any new computer, the first thing I do is I set a password code lock. So by default, again, as I stated earlier, if you log into Standard Notes brand new for the first time on any machine and or device, it doesn't auto lock by default. And so you'll want to go into your settings and enable the passcode lock. So that way, if you walk away from your device and or your desktop, Standard Notes will still, further protect your notes from someone just walking up to your desk and accessing Standard Notes. The privacy setting here, this is related to the session tracking that we talked about earlier. So if I go back to general, that's directly related to, the account page here, to this section right here. So all these sessions that you see, this particular toggle controls that. So if you don't want tracking, you can just turn this off. But again, for me, I do want to know what devices I'm logged into, just in case I lost the device, and so I typically keep this on. One of my favorite features of Standard Notes is the backup system. You'll see here that you can kind of set by default what your downloaded backup types are, encrypted or decrypted. I keep this as encrypted. You can even import a backup that was previously done. You can even also turn on automatic backups as well. And so typically This is for these two particular options are for the desktop application. So what I do is I have kind of like a server in my home that has the Standard Notes desktop application always running on it. And typically what I do here is I enable local backups to my network attached storage device. So basically these two options are only going to show up if you're leveraging the Standard Notes desktop application, and they will automatically back up all your data to either a local folder on your computer, or you can have it back up to again, cloud storage like Google Drive or SyncThing if you want. But for me, I have it backing up all my data to my network attached storage, which is my backup system. And so this is great because it just happens automatically. And then you really get some flexibility here as far as how your data is backed up. Standard Notes used to support backing up directly to things like OneDrive or Google Drive. They have since decommissioned that feature, primarily due to the fact that it was just hard to keep up with all the API changes with those third-party cloud storage solutions. And so for them to kind of really focus on higher value targets within Standard Notes, they wanted to kind of remove that functionality and support backup solutions that were more in their control. And so here you won't see any type of cloud-based backups. Again, you could point your backups to a cloud storage solution of choice if you wish. Your backups are fully encrypted, so you could technically store these files, on such things like Google Drive, and feel safe that they're fully encrypted and no one's going to have access to them. Lastly, you have the email backups here for email-based backups. I do this, and so you can set it for every day or every week and have your notes sent to you via an email. This is fully encrypted, so what happens is that depending on the setting here, Standard Notes will email you a email attachment that is technically just a text file. It's a text file that's fully encrypted that has all your notes in it, and they'll do that daily or weekly for you. So I do this daily, and it's very nice because if you have computer-based backup set up using these two options here, set up using the SN desktop application, and you have email backups enabled, you now have two separate backups happening at the same time, which gives you, again, more certainty that your data is safe in the case of some form of disaster or you delete your notes by accident. The email backups do not include backups of any files that are uploaded to Standard Notes. And so if you're going to be doing that, you want to make sure that you have the Standard Notes desktop application set up on one of your machines and that you have the automatic file backups enabled. This will back up the actual files that you upload to Standard Notes onto your local machine. Now, what's really great about this feature is that if you're leveraging the Standard Notes desktop application and you try and open up a file that's already stored in Standard Notes, it will check a backup first and load that version before it actually goes out to Standard Notes file storage system to pull down that file. And so if you're on like a metered internet connection, that would actually save you some bandwidth. Next up, we can actually change the appearance here. So for me, if you're on a Mac or Windows, you can have Standard Notes use whatever system color scheme your operating system is leveraging. So if you're in dark mode, for example, it will default to all the darker themes within Standard Notes. You can also edit the appearance of your editor here. So you can say, hey, you know what? I like the monospace font, so I'm going to go ahead and enable that for both the plain text and supernote types. You can set your defaults for font size, line height, and editor width. Listed, again, this is for the listed blogging system, so you can kind of follow this Get Started guide if you want to take advantage of the listed blog platform. And then lastly, we have the help and feedback section, which allows you to kind of see how you can get involved with the community and or get help and answers to your common questions if you ever need to kind of get some more details on how to leverage like Standard Notes. So with that, we kind of went through everything in the preferences section, except for the what's new category. This is pretty awesome. Every time Standard Notes comes out with a new feature or a new version of their software, you can always come here after you update and kind of see what the change log was or what new added feature or bug fix they did. So I find it to be very useful and great. So we kind of covered a lot. The last thing that we didn't cover was the open account menu here, but again, that's just preferences on your login. You can create different workspaces if you want to separate out your notes between like personal and work. If you want to import a backup or notes such as Evernote, you can do that here. And again, help and feedback if you want to find further help, and you can kind of see what version of Essen you're currently on. So I hope this was very valuable to you. I hope you gained something out of this part two of my overview of standard notes. Again, please leave any comments in the section below, and I'll try and leave some more details in the description for other resources where you can learn more about standard notes. If you like this video, please help me kind of get this video out to more folks by liking and subscribing. And thank you for taking the time to kind of, cover this with me. Appreciate it. Catch you guys in the next one.